Today, I am showing you that you can have a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner, even on a budget, even for just $50. We are eating well today. I'm going to show you the entire way from purchases to cooking to process, exactly how to make a $50 Thanksgiving dinner.
I'm going to show you what I ended up purchasing from Walmart today. So I went with a super simple, basic, like we're not doing a lot of homemade stuff. We're just going for lower cost Thanksgiving this time. But I also recommend that you always shop your pantry first. So, well, what I purchased is going to give you a very wonderful and robust Thanksgiving. We're also going to try and elevate it a little bit by shopping what I already have around the house to try to make things even better. And so I completely recommend that you kind of do the same thing. Look around and see what you can do to really make the things that you do purchase even better. So in no particular order, I'm just going to go through the bags. You could very easily make your own pie and pie crust, and you are going to find that in my $50 free Thanksgiving guide. I'm going to give you a recipe for a super simple pie crust. So if you have butter or margarine or even like Crisco or something like that and flour, you can make a pie crust. So you don't even need to pay for these. This was like $5 worth of pie crust, but I didn't want to assume that we had the items to make the pie crust. And for me, this is just going to be easier. So sometimes you also want to go the realistic route, the easy route, by buying the pie crust. So I got 2 deep dish pie crusts. I like deep dish better than regular, but either way, they're both good. I got a can of evaporated milk and a can of pumpkin. You can tell we're going to make pumpkin pie here. Some things that I didn't purchase, like I didn't get sugar. I'm going to assume that you have some sugar on hand. If you need to buy sugar, it's going to increase the price a little bit more. But I was going to go with some basic things like sugar, butter, oil, spices, seasonings, even some mayonnaise because we're going to do some deviled eggs. So this is one thing that's going to make a classic traditional pumpkin pie for us. I also got whipped cream. You can again make your own whipped cream. That is absolutely delicious. It does take a little bit more time. Honestly, at our Thanksgivings every year, we just use the whipped stuff because, hey, it's good, it works, it's quite delicious. But if you do want to make your own, again, I will put a very simple recipe. There's going to be a very simple recipe inside of that $50 guide so that if you have some heavy cream on hand and some sugar, or maybe it's less expensive for you to just buy heavy cream, you can make your own. I got 4 apples. I think these were like Fuji ones, just because that was the cheapest ones that I could find. Granny Smiths are also great for an apple pie. We're just going to make a traditional apple pie, and I'm going to use one of these deep dish pies to actually flip it over and put it on top of the pie cover. So any very traditional apple pie, pumpkin pie. I think that if you have a Thanksgiving and you're serving both of those, you pretty much got it going on. You don't need to do anything more than that if you don't want to. I got turkey gravy mix because I just feel like the stress of making gravy once you're like cooking a million things at the same time is a lot. So I like to use the packet. It's up to you. You can also make your own out of the drippings of the turkey, and that is a budget choice that is very easy to do. You can also do like a make-ahead gravy. I've done that in the past where you buy some chicken thighs and then you can eat those for dinner. And then you can actually take the drippings from those and make some gravy and actually freeze it or put it in the fridge. But this is going to be easy peasy for us. Again, you can buy cranberries, especially this time of year. They usually go on sale for a couple of bucks. You mix those with water and sugar. You follow the instructions on the back of the package. That's my favorite way. And then you can zhuzh it up with like a little bit of cinnamon or some oranges or orange juice to make it like a little bit different of a flavor. We love canberry. And I feel like you're either team make it yourself or team canberry or both. So comment below which one you love. But I bought some canberry because that's what we're gonna have this time, but you can also make it. My kids, we actually do like a little competition each year and they'll each make one. And so then we have like a little cranberry off. This started when I was little. I used to do it with my sister. So it's a little fun way to get your kids involved in the kitchen for Thanksgiving. So you could try that as well. Also been holding these green beans. We've got canned green beans and we've got French's onions. We're just gonna make a very traditional green bean casserole. Now this is not my favorite way to make it. My mom actually makes an amazing one, but that one's a little bit more expensive and involved. So this is gonna do it for us. And I think I've got a can of cream of mushroom too. So it's this, and some milk. So if you need to buy milk, I have milk, so we're good. because I ordered from the thing they gave me, the toy catalog, the kids are gonna be psyched. Keeping it simple with the mashed potatoes this year. You can do a lot of things to zhuzh these up too. Like you can add some chicken bouillon or chicken broth. That gives a lot of flavor. You can add in some Boursin cheese or some sour cream or some Parmesan. I actually have a whole video on how to make these even more delicious, so I'll put that down in the description box for you. We'll probably add a little bouillon to this if we have some, but otherwise we're gonna make these. Potatoes are also really inexpensive this time of year, so if you wanna make your own, I saw on sale, I think one of my local stores, like it was at Walmart, so I didn't get them at Walmart because I wanted to save money on this $50, but I think they were like $1.97 for 3 or 5 pounds. So if you bought them, you could use them to make mashed potatoes, and then you could also use them for other meals so they could roll over. So you could still be saving money, right? So you don't need to necessarily use the entire cost of the potatoes for your $50 dinner. That could actually be for some potato soup or something. Box stuffing mix is a savior. My favorite is the Pepperidge Farm. I think it's like the traditional blend. We've been making that for years. I cut up some onion and some celery, and that's just my favorite stuffing. Everyone has their stuffing that they like, right? I decided to grab some cornbread stuffing this time, but they also have chicken, they have turkey, so it's whatever flavor you want to try. And again, we can make this even better. We can add some pork sausage to it, so it could be like sausage stuffing. You can add some craisins, so like a little bit of a cranberry flavor, walnut, something like that. Apples. There's a lot of different choices, or even with the cornbread, you can do jalapeno. So there's all these things that you can kind of add in to make your basics even better. And for me, that's just gonna depend on what you have on hand, right? I actually have some craisins and even some pork sausage, so I'm wondering if I wanna add that, or I'm feeling like maybe the craisins would be good. Sometimes you don't always have like the final product figured out either. You're like, I know what we're gonna do here. I got eggs. So these used to be like the best budget thing, but now they're like $3 for a package. It used to be like 60 cents if you remember 2020. Now 2024, it's gone up 300%. I'm gonna make deviled eggs because I feel like what's Thanksgiving without deviled eggs, and my kids love deviled eggs. All we need for that is a little bit of mayonnaise, which we have. You can even make your own mayonnaise with one of the eggs and some oil, so it's easy peasy. And then it doesn't get more basic than this. I've got stuff to make a cheese board, and just like a very basic cheese board. Cheese, crackers, but my kids are gonna love this. So pepperoni, cheese, crackers, and deviled eggs for an appetizer. And then we have the pièce de résistance, our turkey here. How do you get? Okay, so this ended up being $13.42, which I think this time of year, because it's actually October, is pretty good. It was 88 cents a pound. Be looking out for those sales on turkey, because you're gonna find it sometimes like as low as like 50 cents a pound, depending on where you shop. I know I have one store that it's a more expensive store, but when you're shopping for like these items at the Thanksgiving time, they actually have crazy deals. Like their deals are so much better than anywhere else, just on like your Thanksgiving items, because they want you to come in and buy the more expensive stuff. But if you're a smart shopper, you can just go in and get the turkey and get out and get the really good deal on it. So I still thought that was pretty good. This is a 15-pound turkey, like so much more than we need right now. And we're gonna have a lot of leftovers. In my $50 guide, I have an entire leftover section that's gonna give you all sorts of leftover recipes. So if you are making a larger turkey than you need, you can actually eat like the whole next week off of these leftover recipes. And I also have a video on leftovers, or a few videos, and I'll have a little playlist down in the description box so that you can check that out too. So if you have more turkey than you need, there's a million things you can do with it, and you can even freeze it, which is really nice. So even if you have more, that's okay. There's other options as far as turkey. You can get just like a breast, and sometimes those are cheap, like especially if there's not just your family and you don't like the dark meat. Cook a breast. I have a video where I did one, so I'm gonna put that down in the description box. I'm gonna put the whole playlist of all of my budget Thanksgivings down in the description for you, if you want to check those out. But just doing the breast is probably like less than $10, especially around Thanksgiving time. So I've done that before. I've done a turkey tenderloin in the crock pot, so that's super simple. I've even done a chicken. So last year I did like a Thanksgiving chicken, and that just is like all those Thanksgiving flavors, like thyme, sage, rosemary, on the chicken. So the same way that you would season and cook a turkey, but with a chicken. And again, it was less than $10, and it was delicious. So you can do it however you want. I splurged on this. It's hard because like if I made this in 2020, this would be my $20 Thanksgiving. and now it's $50. So that's hard. That's why we have to focus in on our spending the rest of the year, because everything is more expensive, but there is a way to do it. Like, you can eat well for less, and that's what I'm here to show you.
So whenever I'm making a big dinner, especially like Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, I want to make sure that I'm making my desserts first so that those can cool down and just be ready and kind of out of the way. You can even make them the night or the day before. And often when I am cooking for Thanksgiving, my mom comes over the night before and we just get all the pies done and do everything ahead that we possibly can. So for an apple pie, you want to start with 4 to 5 apples. And I just had 4 because we're, cooking on a budget, just trying to keep it as light as we can, and there's no reason to buy 5 if we don't need to. And you just want to peel the apples and then slice them into wedges. You want to make sure the wedges aren't too big because we want to make sure that the apples can get cooked all the way through. And once those apples are sliced up, just put them all into a bowl. To the apples, you want to add 3/4 a cup of sugar and 3/4 a teaspoon of cinnamon and just mix that well. And then with these apples, these are like the Fuji apples. They're a little bit juicier than maybe a Granny Smith. And I kind of regretted not putting in a couple tablespoons of flour or cornstarch. The recipe within the ebook does include the flour or cornstarch, and I think that would help with keeping it less liquidy because especially with these apples, the pie did get a little bit liquidy. It still tasted delicious, but I prefer it when it's like a little bit gooier than liquid. I forgot to mention, you do want to defrost those pie crusts according to the package instructions. It was just having them sit out 20 minutes beforehand, or if you're making your crust, you will be all set. And then just pour those apples right into there. And then you just want to cut a tablespoon of butter into small cubes and place that over the apples evenly on the pie. So just kind of sprinkle them about. And then I'm just going to take the second pie crust and just place it over the top and kind of pull it out of the tin. And you'll notice it still kind of has like that ring from the pie pan. Once it cooks up, you really won't even notice, so it's not a big deal. If you really needed to, you could like roll it out and make it flat, but it's absolutely fine to do it this way, and that way it kind of keeps that kind of top crust on it anyway. And then there are different ways to kind of make that pie crust look nice. I've in the past used my fingers to pinch it. In this case, it was such kind of like a thick matchup of the two on top of each other that I just used a fork to press them together, and that kind of sealed that pie crust on. And then you want to take a knife and put some cuts in the top of the pie, and this is going to allow it to vent just a little bit, but not too much. And then you just want to bake this at 425 degrees for 45 minutes. And if you might want to check on it after like 20 minutes. I checked on mine. The top was getting a little brown, so I just put a sheet of foil over the top to make sure that it didn't get too dark. And then for our deviled eggs, I'm just going to set aside 2 eggs because we're going to need those for the pumpkin pie. And then I use a steamer to make my hard-boiled eggs. So I just got about 1 inch of water started in the bottom of a rice cooker. And you press the steam setting and set it for 14 minutes and it'll heat up. And while it's heating up, I just put the 10 eggs into the steamer basket. Once it's ready to cook for those 14 minutes, then I put those in, I let it go, and then we'll put them in an ice bath after. All right, now we're gonna make the pumpkin pie. So you want 2 eggs beaten and then add in 1 cup of sugar, 1 can of evaporated milk, 1 can of pumpkin puree, a 1/2 tablespoon of melted butter, 1/8 of a cup of either molasses or dark corn syrup, which is what I ended up using because that's what I had on hand. So whichever one you have is going to work fine. They're fine substitute for one another. Then a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And you just want to mix that all together really well. And you're going to be like, yep, this looks like pumpkin pie filling. It's perfect. And this is full of flavor, a really great kind of classic pumpkin pie recipe. Just pour the filling into your pie pan. And I found that I actually ended up having a little bit of extra. It just makes extra. So it makes sense. You don't want to like break up the different cans of pumpkin and evaporated milk. So you could cook that separately as like a crustless, especially if you have somebody who doesn't want to have the crust. But just fill it, as much as you can. You also don't want to have it spill everywhere, so just be careful. And then this is going to cook at a different temperature, so I did need to wait until that apple pie came out. And in the meantime, I was just looking around to see if there was anything else I wanted to add or like what I could have added to my Thanksgiving dinner. So I had a can of corn. If I needed more sides, I could have easily added that can of corn, cook it up with some butter or some cream. I had those pecans. I could have added that to our tray for like a charcuterie board, as well as the snickerdoodle almonds, the Kalamata olive spread, and even some of this jam would be good. So these are all things I could have added. It was just the 5 of us, and we weren't like in like the Thanksgiving spirit as far as we didn't want to like completely overindulge. So we didn't end up adding any of that stuff. I'm just saying if I was serving to a crowd or if it actually was Thanksgiving Day, I probably would have put all those things out. And that would have really made like quite the Thanksgiving charcuterie board. And then I just grabbed an onion in here because I was going to add that to my stuffing, as well as celery. And then I also had some cream cheese. So like I could have easily done like some cream cheese stuffed celery as an appetizer. So there's lots of different options kind of around the house that, you know, I could have used to make things more robust and actually even maybe spent less money. And then I just wanted to show you the dishes. So one thing that's really important about cooking a dinner like this is to just kind of do the dishes as you go. So just try your best to get done things when you're waiting for something else. So in this case, I was waiting for my apple pie to finish and I was waiting for my eggs to finish. So while that was happening, I was washing the dishes. And then once the eggs were done after those 14 minutes, I wanted to add them directly to an ice bath. So I just put water and ice in a bowl and then I use tongs to pull the eggs out because they're quite hot. And this will make sure that they don't overcook and get that like dark green color to them. And then my apple pie came out of the oven and I actually needed to turn the temperature up to 450 degrees. And then I cooked the pumpkin pie for 450 degrees for 15 minutes and then turned the heat down to 350 and went for another 50 minutes. So if this were actual Thanksgiving, that's pretty much everything I would have done the night before Thanksgiving. So that's what I would recommend to you is if you're getting started for Thanksgiving, make your pies and get your eggs boiled the night before if you're doing this exact same dinner. And then morning of, you know, say it's Thanksgiving morning, do the math on your turkey. It's about 15 minutes per pound. So mine took a little, I think it was like a little over 3 hours. So once those pies came out, I just did this all in one day. It was like a Friday and it worked out fine for us. But I wouldn't, you know, like you can do it on Thanksgiving. You could totally do it in this order and that'd be fine. It's just not like how I like to do my Thanksgiving. So for the turkey, important to mention that you need to defrost a frozen turkey and it takes about 1 day for every 4 to 5 pounds. So make sure that you plan ahead for that and make sure you get your frozen turkey ahead of time, take it out, put it in the fridge, and make sure that it's fully defrosted on Thanksgiving Day. That would be a tragedy if it was frozen, although there are ways to defrost it by kind of putting it in some water if you desperately needed to, but plan ahead. You got this. So for the turkey, I started with 4 tablespoons of softened butter, just like room temperature butter, and then 4 to 5 cloves of garlic. I'm just going to mince that up, put it in with the butter because we're going to kind of make this butter that we can rub all over the turkey. Now you could totally use fresh herbs here, but I'm just using dried because that's what I have and it saves you quite a bit of money not to buy a bunch of fresh herbs. I have about a half a teaspoon of sage, a half a teaspoon of thyme, and a half a teaspoon of rosemary, as well as a quarter teaspoon of salt and a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. And then just mix that around with a fork so you kind of get this pasty herb butter that is, I mean, it's truly amazing because it has all that garlic in it and you can smell it like it's so good. And then for the inside of the turkey, the cavity, you can just go salt, pepper, herbs, and kind of douse it in that. I did have an onion, so I wanted to add an onion quartered, and you can just keep the skin right on that, as well as a half of a lemon, because that kind of gives it like some aromatics and adds flavor to it. If you don't have that, that's totally fine. It's not a big deal if you don't add it, but if you have, so it's all about kind of adding things based on what you already have. And then I did take the turkey out of its wrapper in the sink. I do not wash my turkey because you're really not supposed to wash poultry. It ends up spreading germs further, so you're supposed to just kind of take it out and then make sure you go into the cavity and pull out all of the giblets and the neck and anything that they may have put in there. You want to pull that out. Some turkeys even come with like a gravy packet in there, so take a look for that because if yours has that, then more power to you. You're all set. And then you just saw me there adding about a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of black pepper to the inside of the cavity of the bird. And I was really careful to try and not like touch the bird and then touch anything else because there's like a lot of contamination that can happen there. You just want to try and be as careful as possible to not like be touching the salt or the pepper with your bird hands. But I rubbed the salt and pepper and then I grabbed those onions and lemons. That's okay because I'm using the same hand to put them inside. They're already going to go inside and then get cooked in there. We're not even going to eat those, so it's not a big deal, which is part of the reason why I don't do stuffing either. So I'm not stuffing the turkey with stuffing. One reason is can like cause illness if you don't cook it all the way through. And the other reason is it takes a long time to cook the bird when it has its stuffed with something. So the bird ends up being much drier. So the bird actually cooks a lot faster and a lot more juicy when you do not stuff it with anything. So there's just like the loosely put the onion and the lemon in there. It gives lots of flavor. It's much better that way. And then you'll see I'm just shaking in lemon, thyme, and rosemary after I had already washed my hands again, and then putting the hand back in there to kind of move all that stuff around and again make sure that it's fully covered. And then I ended up like putting some stuff away. So again, wash my hands. There's a lot of hand washing sessions when you're dealing with a bird like this. And then you want to go underneath the skin of the breast and try and push your hand under there and make like a little cavity. And it's actually not as hard as you might think it is. And this is the perfect little pouch, the perfect little area to put lots of flavor. So we're taking that buttery herb butter and that paste and just kind of rubbing that all over the inside of the breast and kind of leaving some of that in there. And it's just an amazing way to cook the turkey because all of that's just going to sit right on top of there and the flavor is really going to get in there. And you want to get in there on both sides, both breasts. And then once you're done with that, take the rest of that butter and we're going to put that in the microwave and microwave it until it's melted. Just use like the melt function and then just pour that right over the bird. And I used a brush that you'd use maybe for like barbecue sauce right on there as well to kind of make sure that everything evenly got over the bird and to make sure some of that garlic and those herbs stuck to it and just make sure that it's fully covered. And then I just baked this at 325 degrees for about 15 minutes per pound. Now my bird came with one of those little pop-up things, which is really nice to tell you if it's done. Those are not always 100% accurate, so you may also want to use a thermometer, and you want to make sure that the space in between the thigh and so it's like the deepest part of the turkey is 165 degrees, and then you're going to take it out. So I'm just going to bake mine, and we're going to be all set. I hate that this happened, but my video did not record when I was making the deviled eggs. So what you want to do is peel them and slice them in half and then take all of the yellow yolks and put them in a bowl. And then to that, I added 1/3 cup of mayonnaise, 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, 1.5 teaspoons of cider vinegar, and then just a sprinkle of salt and pepper. And then you can kind of add to that if you feel like you want it to be a little bit saltier. And then I used a immersion blender to mix it up. I've also in the past, if I needed to, just used a fork and mashed it. It just ends up like a little bit lumpier. And you can also put it in a food processor. I definitely recommend blending it or putting it in the food processor to make sure that it's really, really smooth. And then you can use just like a spoon or a fork and pour them into your open egg whites. I don't know where my pastry bag is, so I just ended up going the old-fashioned easy way, and I just poured it into a Ziploc bag, and then I cut the tip off of the Ziploc bag, and I kind of squeezed it in, and I did kind of 2 pumps of squeezing it in, and it made these beautiful little tops to the eggs, so you don't need anything fancy. They also sell piping bags at the Dollar Tree, so I always like have to remember to go grab one myself because I just don't know where mine are. These things happen because if you are a person that cooks a lot, you end up having like a lot of gear, a lot of appliances, a lot of different little things that you accumulate over time that if you're always cooking, like you do end up using them. So that's how sometimes my pantry gets a little clogged up. I got to clean it out. Anyway, I digress. Put all that into your eggs. If you love this egg platter as much as I do, it is in my Amazon store down below. I've used it every year, multiple times a year. I got it as a wedding gift and it's just amazing. Anyway, once that's done, then take some paprika and put it in the palm of your hand. So this is kind of the way to kind of avoid getting paprika over the whole thing. Don't just sprinkle the paprika or try and do it from the container onto each of the eggs. Put some in your hand and then just sprinkle it with the tips of your fingers. And that really helps to get it right on top of the egg. And that's how it looks really pretty. So at this point, my bird is in, my pies are done, and I have put the deviled eggs in the refrigerator because it wasn't quite time for us to kind of have our appetizers yet, which is a great thing about appetizers like this. They're not warm, so you can kind of make them ahead so that you are ready when you're ready. I love getting like platters as gifts, and even if you may not get one for a gift, but you are hosting for the first time, you don't have a lot of things like this, you can find stuff that's really cute at thrift stores. A lot of times people are getting rid of things and there's stuff in the holiday section, and you can go and get for just like $10, you can really increase your holiday repertoire. I don't know what the right word is, but you can really make things look really nice on your table for just a few bucks if you go over to a thrift store. So I recommend that as a great way to decorate on a budget, especially china. Like I always see china sets at the thrift store at Savers. And I'm like, these are amazing. Like they're probably worth a lot of money. And I feel like China's kind of old school. I have a set of china that I use for every holiday, and it really does elevate the table. So I recommend you grab some if you don't have any. So I'm just slicing up the cheese, and I'm going to kind of put it on two sides of the board. You know, when you're making like a charcuterie board, even if you're just putting these three things on it, or say you're having more people, so you grabbed those nuts that I had and a few different things, you need to put like one thing in multiple places sometimes, and you can still make it look really nice. Like I was just trying my best to try and make this look as cute as possible with just a few things. And don't overthink it. Just put the things out. It's going to taste good, and don't worry too much about what it looks like, but you can make it look cute. And again, I wasn't quite ready to serve those, so I was just trying to get everything kind of ready for when the turkey did come out of the oven. I want to make sure that I can start cooking kind of all the rest of my sides, or that they're pretty much ready to go. So I just diced up 1 onion and 2 slices or 2 stalks of celery, and I'm going to end up putting that into my stuffing. I know I had talked about doing some craisins earlier, or maybe some nuts or sausage, and neither of those things worked out. My kids ate all the craisins, so it's just, that's how life is. That's why sometimes I was like, I can't decide exactly what I'm going to do. Well, sometimes I just don't know what I'm going to have depending on who eats what, right? So onion and celery it is, which are my favorites and my classic in a stuffing. So that's what we ended up doing. So just cut those up and set them aside. And then I started making the green bean casserole. So you just want to start with the 1 can of condensed cream of mushroom soup. Add in like 3/4 cup of milk, some salt and pepper, and then drain the can of green beans and pour those in. I think I personally like it better with like frozen green beans, but hey, canned green beans are a little bit cheaper. You could very easily make this for more people too by adding in a second can of green beans. That would be absolutely fine. You could add a little more milk to it if you need it to be a little bit creamier. And that's just how I got it started. You are eventually going to add in about half of that French fried onions into the mix, and then top it with the rest of them. But I just wanted to get this started and set it off to the side so that once I was ready to put it in the oven, I could add the onions. I just didn't want them to get soggy before I did. I think it's actually cheese. It is cheese. It's a rectangle.
Oh, it's a rectangle.
Mm-hmm. Is that good?
Yeah.
You gonna eat some?
Nope. We put it right here.
Okay.
Icicle.
Okay, are you gonna eat the crackers and the pepperoni though?
Let me make a right. Pet is tractor. Pet oh.
Wow.
Tractor.
Wow, that's called a pattern.
Tractor. Pet.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Now you have to eat it, okay?
No, let me put it. Maybe put raspberry.
Okay. Can you eat these?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to eat them. Maybe pick pepperoni.
Good.
Eat pepperoni.
We really enjoyed our appetizers. Ben in particular making his little patterns. He's really into shapes and patterns right now, but everyone loves the deviled eggs. Our family ate the entire 10 eggs, I have to admit. But hey, you know what? If that's the worst thing we're eating, that's not too bad. And hey, look at that. Perfect timing. That turkey came out of the oven. How beautiful is that turkey? That is like the golden brown crust or skin. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've become more appreciative of a well-cooked turkey, like not over. Just juicy, flavorful turkey meat is amazing. And so this was perfect. This is going to sit. I'm going to kind of let that turkey sit for a few and then add in half of those French's crispy onions, mix that together, and then top it with the crispy onions. And then just keep that oven at 350 degrees and cook that for about 20 minutes. And while that was cooking, that's the perfect amount of time to get everything else going on the stove top. So in a larger pot, I started with 2 tablespoons melted in the bottom of a pan over medium heat, and then I added in those onions and that celery, and we're just going to cook that down for about 5 to 7 minutes until it's kind of, the onions are translucent and the celery is softer. And then I'm just cooking the mashed potatoes according to package instructions. So I've added water in here. If I had bouillon cubes or bouillon, I would have added it. For some strange reason, I was actually out, so I couldn't have even made them better. But they were really good as they were, so it's fine because you put gravy on top of it and it's really good. And also just following the package for the gravy instructions. And we're just cooking everything up. It kind of all goes at the same time. You're stirring the celery and the onions. You're stirring the gravy, making sure you get those mashed potatoes fluffed up in there once everything's boiling. And the timing couldn't be better. And that's all at the same time. Your green bean casserole is cooking and the turkey is resting. And from there, it's just following the package instructions on the stuffing as well. And then once everything was done, I transferred the gravy into a gravy boat. I put the stuffing into a different bowl for serving. Same thing with the mashed potatoes. I put them into some pottery that I have that I like to put out on special occasions. It's fine also to just put it out inside the pans or serve in the kitchen and have everything inside of the pans if that's the way you want to do it. It certainly keeps your dishes down. So you just got to do what works for you. I like to have everything on the table, so I just kind of transfer it. And then Canberry, in order to open a Canberry, if you have never done it before, you have to open it on one side and then at least put a hole on the other side to give it some air, and then shake it and it'll kind of slide right out. It's kind of a special moment. And then we just slice it into rounds and serve it at the table. And this is, my kids go wild for this stuff. And it's basically like Jell-O, I guess, that you just put on top of your turkey, but it gives it lots of good flavor, so not a problem. And then time to slice up the turkey. So you start by slicing the thigh, and I sliced off the kind of leg bone there, and then you get all the way down to the bottom and try and cut that at the joint. Sometimes it's difficult to find, but you can do it. And then I just cut the breast off and kind of cut the dark meat off of that thigh, because that's my favorite part personally. Comment below if you're white meat or dark meat person. Nothing wrong with either, but I think I really like the flavor in the dark meat. And then, so just slice that off. And then for the breast, you want to slice it kind of the opposite way, I guess almost how you would see it kind of at a restaurant. I used to slice it almost like it was deli meat, but I started slicing it this way, and I just really, one thing is I like the way that it looks. It looks beautiful in presentation. And I also feel it's kind of, that's the against the grain way of cutting it, like you would cut a steak, and it ends up just being more tender that way, and you kind of get a little bit of everything. So I really felt like this ended up being a beautiful piece. I didn't even cut the wing off when we were serving it to our family, just because this was plenty of turkey for us. So we ended up I made a enchilada soup that you'll actually see soon, and I added turkey to that, and that was really good. And then we just ate some regular turkey. Oh, I made a turkey buffalo chicken salad. That was amazing too. And then you can see it bubbling, that green bean casserole was done. I just set the table with my china. I lit some candles. That's all I did. I didn't put a ton of stuff on the table as far as tablescape. It's kind of this very traditional looking Thanksgiving. I wanted to put the pies out there so that we could see everything. And I really felt like it was so cozy, so beautiful, and really delicious. I mean, these are the very bare bones basics, but even with this was a lot of food, and it felt very abundant. And I think even though we're spending, more this year, like I said in the past, 2020, it was $20. This year it costs $50. That's a lot. It's a lot for people, but I think we should just be grateful to be together, be grateful that we can eat. I know that I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you are here for watching every single video that I put out and that I can be helpful. I just want to be able to share with people and help them eat well for less. If you are interested in the $50 Thanksgiving guide, it is free for the first 150 downloads. That is down in the description box. Go get it today. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Don't forget to check out my other Thanksgiving videos. They're right here in a playlist. And you have a wonderful holiday season.
I was out of use.